And rise, face the flag with the Pledge of Allegiance. It's right up there. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The school board will convene to closed session tonight to consider the employment, promotion, compensation, and performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises any responsibility under Wisconsin statute 19.85 for N1 for NC for compensation and evaluations, support staff and certified staff, and the superintendent evaluation. We have 3 presentations tonight, and we will start with Mr. Baker from Hilliard. I'll have Mr. Lee introduce him.
Yeah, Mark Baker and Bill Martin are with Hilliard. Hilliard supplies us with cleaning supplies and equipment, and they're going to work with our custodial staff on how to most efficiently clean our new facility and new flooring and systems. So they have a complete program, and they'll tell you about it.
Excellent. Well, thanks for having us. This is Bill. I'm going to have Bill go through the actual nuts and bolts of the program very quickly. We normally take 2 hours, but you don't want to do that. But and then if you have any questions, I'll field all those because I've been doing all the work on the program itself. So Bill, take it away, and then we'll go from there. But if you have any questions, just stop us and we'll.
Sounds good. We'll just do like a 30,000-foot view of what our actual program is, because like Mark said, just to rip through the program to tell you all the nuts and bolts of it and what we really do, getting down and dirty with all the detail, it does take me 45 minutes just of talking. So I'll just rip through here. So stop me if you have any questions. But basically what we've implemented here and what we've already started at the school is our cleaning cost analysis. We call it CAP. It's a cleaning cost analysis program, which is a virtual database of your building. So we come in and measure your buildings, and so like for example, this room we would say is 880 square feet of carpet. It's got 12 tables and 14 chairs, and we put it all into this program that we're talking about, so that we can get you the most efficient cleaning possible for your buildings, for what you have for people and what you have for tools, equipment, right? And I guess one of my favorite parts about the program is it takes opinion completely out of any cleaning conversation that you have in the district. But when we're done, this is not my opinion, Mark's opinion, Kyle's opinion, or the custodian's opinion. It's analytics and data and facts. Okay?
Based on national and international standards.
Right. So it's a virtual database. It reflects your square footage, your floor types and your fixtures throughout the entire campus. Your cleaning tasks, cleaning frequencies, your current tools, and your employees. And that, with your employees, that includes their hours, days that they work, their breaks, other responsibilities, which people don't think about. Custodians have a lot of other responsibilities besides just cleaning. So we include all that, and we can include their PTO as well. The nuts and bolts of this whole thing is, with the custodial staff, we're talking about labor here. Labor is your major spend, right? And we need to pin down that labor and get it as accurate as we can. We need to get the most. You're writing a check for your people to work. We need that check that's being written to be fulfilled, right? And oftentimes their allocation of their work isn't correct. So we need to hone in on that and help you out with your labor. So it's not necessarily about what your spend is on product, but labor. I'll get into, we talked about a little bit about everybody has an opinion, the school board, everybody here has an opinion, and that's great, but we need this thing to be factual. There's so many pieces to the puzzle that most people don't think about. So square footage, floor types, fixtures, cleaning tasks, cleaning frequencies, how often, what do you want done and how often do you want it done in the school, and what are you doing now versus what really needs to be done, what's the benchmark that most schools are using. Are you cleaning on weekends, products, with cleaning products we need to, we manufacture cleaning products, but we don't want to sell you 100 things. You should be able to really pare that down to just a handful of products, right? So we work on that. It's a huge part of what we do. Standardize their procedures so everybody's doing things the same way with the same product. There's a lot more to it. Non-cleaning. Labor allocation and labor utilization is something that I focus in on.
Right.
Mark works on big time once this program gets built. So again, we're using your people correctly, right, and maximizing their time as best possible. I'll give you some examples of that here in just a minute. I'm going to fly through this, but 6 steps to building it is we get your map, we measure it like we talked about, we move your architecture and everything you have in the building through our cleaning plan. And for the sake of argument, for the short amount of time that we have here tonight, you just kind of have to trust me that the plan is extremely accurate. We use ISSA, Global Clean Times, so that when we build a route for your custodian and we say at the end of the day, this is all done and here's your this is how you're going to work, it is absolutely accurate to the point where Mark can come in, hand me the book, tell me to clean that custodian's area, hit a stopwatch, and I can get it done within the time frame that we allow, and I can do it 5 days a week. I can do it 5 days a week for 20 years without running wind sprints. It's fair to the people, okay? Fair to the custodians. We then load your current equipment, task and time per room it comes up with. So when this is all done, any one of you can look into the computer and tap into any room in the district and say, in room 102 takes 17.2 minutes to clean. Here's what makes up that 17.2 minutes exactly. Straightening the chairs, cleaning the desktops, moving the trash, doing all the little things that need to be done so you can justify what actually makes that up, not just what takes about 20 minutes. It takes 17.2 minutes, and here's why, okay?
And this is based on the tasking you tell us that you want done.
Correct.
In this room. I want these glasses clean every day. That all comes into play.
Right. So, and that's where there's a little bit of play. You know, there's certain school districts that want to exceed kind of the benchmark. There are others that are so far behind that we need to do everything we can do to get them up to speed. And from what I understand from your numbers here,
this is kind of where you're at.
A little bit behind here. So
yeah.
I think we got a lot of room for improvement.
Let me just say, when we did our baseline here, okay, we took your current equipment, the current things you wanted done, we put it all in the program, and you were about 200% over what you currently have for staffing. So if you had 10 people, you actually need 20 to get it done. So we brought in, we brought in pieces of equipment that would make the job go quicker. And we brought a lot of it in yesterday, we still have more coming, and we trained on it, and it's going to help. So now we've gone from 200% down to 150, which is a huge improvement. But if I tell you to do 150% of work that you're capable of in a day, you can't do it done. You can't just say, well, you work faster. You can't do that, right? We're overloading the custodians. We're giving them 150% when they're capable of doing 100 to 105. We generally try to keep it about 105 because there's always a room that doesn't need to be cleaned, something like that. There's always a shortcut, something doesn't happen. So we don't just say 90% is it, we say 100 to 105%. And that's very, very doable.
Yeah, we like 105% as our goal because that's 22 minutes overbooked per person.
Right, but 150, that's not doable. That's 12 hours a day.
Right. That's when the number one thing we run into is, I don't have enough time to clean my area. Are they right when they say that?
It's an opinion.
Who knows, right?
You don't know until you put numbers to it, which is what we've done. So hopefully with the additional improvements we're going to come into with tasking and everything else, we can bring that sort of into focus.
Right. It's super important that you understand this is so accurate that it's defendable in court, and we've done it multiple times over, like if a custodian got hurt and sued the school and said I'm overworked and there's no way, they're asking me to do way too much, and we have actually gone to court and have won on multiple occasions. John Dahlman himself, who designed the program, is the one that has done it multiple times. That's how accurate it really is, okay? So we have your staff wages, breaks, and then we come up with a cleaning plan. I'm going to fly through this, but for every area, classrooms, it'll have everything in your building. There is a difficulty factor. I'm going to make a quick note on the difficulty factor. I call it a reality knob. We can adjust things based on,
Unique situations in your building.
Right. In Chisholm, Minnesota, the water is so hard, if we say it takes 3 minutes to clean and sanitize that water fountain, they'll say you're a liar, and they're right, because it's harder to do there, right? So we have an ability to do that. If you have a custodian that's 82 years old, but he's a great guy, and he's been here for 47 years, and you're not getting rid of him because he's slow, we can adjust for that too, okay? So, and make it accurate. Understanding non-clean time, so that's built into other responsibilities. We talked about that a little bit, setting up for athletics. I don't know if your custodians here have to remove a little bit of snow, so we factor all that in as well.
We always think that the custodians come in the building and they just go clean. And the truth is, on a night where there's no games, they'll clean about 80% of the time. But on a night where there's games, that throws everything up. There's a lot of what we call non-cleaning tasks, so we have to account for that.
Right. So really what we're trying to do is to right fit your building. We talked about this a little bit, that 100 to 105% is what we shoot for. Right now, you guys have gone from over 200% to 150, so we're still, there's progress, but we got a long ways to go.
So if there's things you don't like the way they look around here, there's a very valid reason. Very valid.
Right. So our goal is, again, to get it right fit, and I'm going to skip ahead here just a bit here because of the time mark.
It's fine.
You guys just have the one building though, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, so
It's a big one.
it works, yeah, and it works great in schools that have one building. It also works, we did it for Minneapolis Public Schools with 86 buildings, so.
Done it for Penn State.
This is how most schools go ahead and allocate their labor, is they get a fire evac map of the building, say this is what a building looks like, and you get the yellow zone, and you get the pink zone, and you get the red zone, and it looks pretty darn fair. Good luck, have at her. And you find out that the yellow zone is the best custodian that you have working here because it's the cleanest, and he does all the favors for the teachers, right? And he's the greatest guy in the world. But the pink zone, you get the complaints, and it's the person that's always whining and behind and never whatever. And there may be a reason for that. And that's what we'll find out, and we'll build zones based on their available minutes and break time and non-clean minutes that we already talked about. We build all that in because this is what we're talking about, this labor allocation. That on this particular school, which I can't remember if this was River Falls. This is one
Yeah,
of
it's a
River Falls.
new building, mid-state.
Yeah. So their blue zone they thought was perfect, but they were overbooked by 71 minutes.
Can't make that up.
71 minutes. So, there's some that are high, some that are low, but the bottom line to the whole thing is their labor allocation is way off, costing them a fortune, 11%. So, and that actually is pretty good. Most of our customers, we find that have allocated their labor on their own with the highlighter, hit about 80 to 85% labor allocation. Okay? This one was 89, which was really good. When we are done, we'll clean all this up. We have the ability to switch yellow to blue to whatever zone to make this thing as accurate as possible. We will get you to 98% labor allocation. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be darn close.
Yep.
Okay? So that's our goal. We'll get there, and we can justify it all. So it's not like one person's getting paid. Okay. And honestly, when this is done, typically what happens is when we first start, custodians are a little apprehensive. People are a little bit nervous. So you're changing my job. You're changing my, I've been here 22 years, and you're telling me what to do. And it's not us telling you what to do. We work with you. We work with you. We work with your staff to get this thing as accurate as possible, but we need them to be on board. And that's Mark's job. And he's the best that we have in our company at working with the people because he's cleaned buildings, he's worked in buildings, he understands buildings, and understands what it takes to keep them happy as well. We seriously find out when at the end of this that our customers, the custodians, are happier at the end of the day because the people that are overworked, and at the end of the day, if they're still gonna be a little overworked, they're okay with it because you
fair.
all understand it and you know where they're at, and it's not them just whining about it, right? It's a legitimate, here's where I'm at. There's no opinions here, this is exactly where I'm at and why. They all get a manual when it's done. The manual is great. I don't know if you utilize subs here or not, but each zone of the building will have a color associated with it. So the yellow zone will get a manual, and it'll be the book for the yellow zone. So if the yellow person is sick or broke a leg or something, and you brought a sub in, the sub gets the book. The book tells them, here's your area, here's the room you start in, here's the order you do it, here's the PPE that you need to use while you're in there. This is the product you use, this is the order you do it in, boom, 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 right down the line. So there's no guesswork there, right? Another piece of this that's super cool, I don't know if most of yours are using this or not, but we do have a quality control piece with it as well, QC program. So your building lead or the buildings and grounds director or whoever that you set up, you go to cms.hilliard.com, download the app, and you can randomly check certain areas of the building, right, to find out if the job's getting done or not in that person's area. You're not picking on one person.
We do
because
it
it's
all
random.
areas of the building, and then we look for, we're having this problem in this part of the building, we're having it here, and so it helps us with our training. So we come in, and we say, okay, we're having difficulty with this, let's train on this and let's move forward. Are there issues other than product or equipment, or is it just more training that we need? So it helps us constantly improve.
Right, and that becomes the real differentiator, I think, with us than most people out there, because you can say, it seems like we're missing the mark on gang restrooms. We're missing the mark on or maybe it's high dusting, whatever it might be. That we're failing these every time, and these results are just not good. That leads to basically a review with them, and it's a point of finger at Mark then and say, hey, Hilliard, we need your help, right? You taught us this and we're failing. How do we do this? So we come in and work with your night people or your day people or all your people, whatever it is, to hone in and train them specifically on where you're having issues. There's an entire catalog of training that's available from us. It's all free that your custodians and managers have access to. Mark will get into that when we're ready. Right now, we got a long ways to go on building the program, but once we're done, it's an ongoing thing. It's fantastic. This was in 2017. I haven't updated it, but like Chippewa Valley Technical College went on with us, and we build programs. How important are you? Teach them a class on cleaning science, routine carpet care. And Mark teaches all that stuff himself, and he's the best in the business. So your people will get training like they've never seen before. New construction, remodel projects, we can handle all that over the blueprints if there's any updating that needs to be done. And basically, it says, we've been doing it 20 years. This program is, it's deep. It's very deep. I think the most important piece for everybody to know here is that it's going to give you granular detail on what's really going on in your buildings, not just generically speaking, but in this room, right? This is what it takes to clean and how long it's going to take and what if we make this change, right? That's where Mark comes into a lot of what if scenarios, and we've already been doing those. Mark has been working with Kyle on some what if scenarios on different equipment or people.
Right.
So you may
and so what I want to say is, because we know we're behind the 8 ball, there's 3 options you have to fix it. We can add labor. We can add mechanization, because that cuts time, or we can change tasking, okay? So we have a lot more work to do, but it's going to come down where if we can't make a choice, we're going to come to the board and we're going to go, look, these are your 3 options, and you choose. And then we'll work and we'll build a program around it. So if we get to that point, I'm hoping that in the next, by summer, that we'll have a little better handle on it. It's kind of an extreme case here, because we have so much building, and you have 175,000 square feet, okay? In a normal school district, you'd be dealing with 7 to 8 custodians. You have 3 night custodians. You have 3.25, okay? So if they look a little tired, be nice to them, buy them a pop, just be nice to them, because they're really, really working hard. And they're doing the best they can, but right now, there's just not enough to go around. So we have a lot of changes to make, and those are the next steps. Any questions? We threw a lot of stuff at you, I'm really sorry, it's a lot of material. Really need 2 hours,
No,
but, you
it's
know.
great.
What is the schedule forward, moving forward?
Moving forward. Right now, we're bringing equipment in. Like every other part of our economy, we're seeing back orders because
Sure.
of batteries, okay? As it comes in, we bring it in, we train your custodians how to use it. Not just how to use the machine, but how to use it within your building, okay? You've made some interesting choices in flooring here, okay? You have flooring that doesn't take floor finish, which is great, so you don't have to strip and wax, right? But it's really hard to push a dust mop on. It's multi-dimensional, so that when you push a dust mop on it, the floor gets dirtier every time you do it. So what have we done? We brought in machines that sweep and pick up the dirt. They're coming when the batteries come, right? But that'll be our next step, because we have to make adjustments. So your question is, we bring in our equipment, we train how to use it throughout the facility. I need to look at tasking, and that's me sitting down at a desk probably for 3 or 4 days and kind of going through things. And then sitting down with Kyle, sitting down with Dan, sitting down with the custodian saying, look, where are your real hot spots? What are we doing? What can we do differently to make this work better? It's really hard to hire labor. I know that's the hardest part. You are so far behind the 8 ball, I'm really thinking that that's going to be something you're going to have to look at. I just don't think you have a choice.
Well, yeah, I know, so we knew that when we built in the building, that's why you
Right.
guys are here, and we're just trying to guide those decisions the best we can.
Right.
You'll also help in this interim, so like cleaning the toilets.
Yeah.
It's probably higher priority than wiping the dust off those windows now.
It is.
To get our staff. So
Okay.
you'll help those decisions, so that the current staff we have can do a great job in certain areas. Other
Exactly.
areas in a building, you can have dust sit on that shelf for longer and it won't get wrecked. If you have more mud ground into the door where the elementary kids come out in a rainy
Yes.
day, that carpet's gonna have to be replaced.
Exactly.
So
You
you're gonna
have to
help
make
with
priorities.
decisions. That's-
So there's
Awesome.
a cleaning level.
Yeah.
There are different cleaning levels for hospitals, for schools, or we can throw it into a 5-day clean, meaning we can set it up so you clean every single thing in your building 5 days a week. That's perfection, right? That's not gonna happen.
That's
right?
300%.
So to answer your question, what we need to do is, we need your input, your
What's
staff's
really important
input.
to you?
What is your goal? It's not our goal, it's what is your goal, and we're gonna help you get there the most efficient. way we can.
I'm going to say something that's probably going to be really unpopular. But when we clean a school building, who is our customer? Throw it out. Who's your customer?
Kids, students,
Nope.
staff.
The kids are here to get educated, and the staff work here, correct? If the parents come into a game tonight, and all the windows are dirty when they walk in, and the floors are dirty, and the bathrooms smell, and you say, we need money for a new facility, they're gonna go, your facility's dirty, you're not taking care of it, okay? When I build a cleaning program, I look at entryways, hallways, bathrooms, and the gymnasium, and then we go from there. Now that sounds a little backwards, okay? But I want my kids in a school to use a clean restroom. That's critical. I don't want it to smell. If it smells, it's not clean. Okay, it's not that someone just used it. If it smells, it's not clean. So we look at entries, we look at hallways, we look at bathrooms, and we look at gymnasiums. If there's a game going on tonight, I want those bathrooms cleaned before the game, not after, because I want the public to come in and go, they know what they're doing. They're professionals. They know how to clean a building. Do you see what I'm saying? So we take what little labor we have and put it where we have to put it to make things look as good as possible. Right now, we're way off the mark, but we're going to get there. We are going to get there.
But with all that said, we'll make all the suggestions in the world. It's your school.
Your school.
It's your school, and we're gonna prioritize things the way you want them prioritized. We'll make suggestions. But listen, we do this in schools all over the United States. We have a ton of them here in Wisconsin. I mentioned earlier,
Right.
Minneapolis Public, but everybody has their own issue, right? What the hot button is. What is the hot button? That's what we'll work around.
Exactly. But we want the public to come into this building because this is a place where kids come to get educated. This is also a community center. It wasn't 20 years ago. I've been doing this for 28 years with Hilliard. When I started, they were schools. Kids came in here, parents would come in for a game. Now this is a community center. These places are open 7 days a week. Okay, and we want the public to think we're professional, we know what we're doing, we're keeping safe and clean facilities, which is what we need to do. So, and 3 of the machines we brought in yesterday are actually mechanized restroom cleaning machines. No touch cleaning. If you have to clean the bathroom, it's best not to touch, right? Because that's not a lot of fun. But we clean everything from here down, walls, dividers, everything gets done every day. So.
Do you lease any of that equipment?
We can lease, yes, that's an option. That is an option.
We're buying.
We're buying. Yeah.
The lease program has an interest rate and it's $1 buyout. So you have a rider scrubber. You make the payments and you pay $1 and it's yours at the end. It's not like you turn it back in and you get a new one. You
I'm
can't.
just thinking about maintenance of the equipment and upgrading equipment and that sort of thing.
A lot of schools have gone, I know Minneapolis, St. Paul has done a lot, they've gone to a lot of leasing programs. At the end, they just take it out, they bring it in new, and there's very low maintenance, and that's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Another area with equipment that a lot of schools miss out on, and I don't know if you do or not, so I'm not saying, but a lot of our schools don't really know anything about or have never heard of preventative maintenance with their equipment that they have purchased. You know, is your equipment that you purchased being taken care of properly?
Yeah.
You know, let us train you on that. Not only train you, that's free, you know, the training piece, but then having a tech come out once a year to go through everything and clean it up and take care of it, it lengthens the life of, say, an auto scrubber by usually about 3 years, 3 to 4 years, you know, and when they're...
You have fewer breakdowns.
Yeah, they're several $1,000s. If you're taking care of them, they're going to last 3 or 4 years. It's worth paying for a little preventative maintenance. So those are things that we work on too. We're over the time that Kyle, you gave us.
I'm sorry.
Do you have any other questions?
Any other questions?
There's a lot, so.
All right.
We're so glad you came here. I know Kyle spoke real highly of you. I know that you were hesitant to come all the way up to Sturgeon Bay.
He's been asking me for a month. We were friends when he was in bed. That's done in my
He
nice.
did a good job in that, otherwise
Well,
I'll throw him in the
thank
bus.
you
No
for
problem.
coming and getting
Your
this
data is
started.
great, I appreciate the data that will result.
You made me happy tonight. I'm the person that complains about the corners in the bathroom. And I'm looking at our gym that's 3 years old now, and I see the dust on top of the heating ventilators and the basketball standards, and think we need to have a scissor list in here within
Yeah.
summer and clean this up, because that's what everybody sees.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It's what the
You're
public
right.
sees.
I had a meeting just like this a few years ago with, I don't know if you know Bill Yangst, superintendent over at Colfax Schools. And Bill has, over the years, become a very good friend of mine. He's a great customer, but really respect him a lot. We did this same program there, and he's a pretty funny guy, military driven, you know, doing things perfect. And we got all done with the program, and he said, I'm going to do 2 things. If you think you're so good at what you do, Martin, I said, you're so good at what you do. He put an M&M behind his door. And he's like, if that thing's there in the morning on fire, yeah. Oh, come on, you know. I told him to pay attention, you know. And the second thing he did was he took an invisible marker that we sell, and I told him.
The black light marker?
It's a black light marker. And he went around to all the doorknobs, and he marked every doorknob in the school. Every single one. And it's a 1-building district like you have here. And he marked every single one. And you can't see it until you hit it with a black light, and then there's a mark on it. And he left a note for his head custodian, or his buildings and grounds director, Chad, and said, I want you to make sure that the team focuses on disinfecting all the doorknobs tonight. I've heard that's an issue. I want them all disinfected. Just no problem. And they left a note that, yep, got her all done. And he walked around that next day with the black light, and there was like 92 doors that hadn't been touched. You know, I think it led to a little bit more training, right? And so, but those are things that we kind of laugh and joke about it, but in all seriousness, we're here for cleaner, safer, and healthier buildings, right? And that's what we do, and that's what we focus on, and that is not because of COVID. We've been doing this program for well over 20 years. The guy who hired me at Hilliard invented the program, and he's still the national director of our CAP program. It's getting better and better. It's all online now. But what it comes down to, at the end of the day, all this stuff's it's all great, but how does it work for Sevastopol, right? What are you doing to help me here, right? And that's what we will prove to you. We will get you brought up to snuff, because you're behind right now. You're a little bit behind. We'll get you there. Just trust in Mark. And when I know Mark and Kyle have known each other for a lot of years. Nobody else here knows either one of us, right? And Mark gets embarrassed when I say stuff like this, but he's the best in the business. He's the best in the business. So we are lucky to have him, and we all in this room are lucky to have him up here. So we appreciate the opportunity. We very much appreciate the business. And if you have any other references that are anywhere within 100 miles of here, let us know, because we need to grow since we got him coming up here. I got to get him more.
It's just a long drive. The last thing I want to say is this. Anything that I recommend for the school district is going to be things we can bring in to cut time. Okay? Because if we can't cut time, I can't get to the windows and the doors coming in. I can't get the spots in the carpet. We're so far away from cleaning those overhead things right now, it's not even funny. That you were just. So anything we do, we talked about paper today. We can cut the amount of time refilling paper dispensers drastically. That doesn't seem like a big deal. It's huge. It means scrubbing half the hallways in the school district every day. It's big, so you got to think big picture, and anything we recommend will only be to cut time. Not cut quality, but cut time. So, anyway, thank you for the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for coming. Safe travels home.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Then move on to the English and Language Arts Department and their presentation.
Yeah, first, title teachers that are
Somebody, okay.
they're all here.
You want to take it?
All right.
We're going to fight over you. It's only fair. Thank you.
Debbie, just want us to walk up when it's touching the seat.
Sure, yeah, that's fine. Probably just to organize our thoughts more than anything. Well, first of all, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Debbie Hers. I'm your new district reading specialist. When our department was putting this together to kind of clarify maybe the department a little more for all of you, we thought it might be easier to put it on some slides to gather our thoughts so that we make sure we try to keep it short, but that's not usually in our nature as ELA teachers, but we try to keep it as simple and clear as possible. So the first step I'm going to do is kind of talk a little bit about the handout you just received and just the guidelines by DPI for that sort of tier of support, the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 concept that we kind of, that guides us into everything we do in ELA. So first of all, you have your tier 1 support, which really is your regular ed classroom and all that they do in there. And the reason that we do the universal screener, which here at Sevastopol is the map testing, okay, is it gives us a broad view of how students are doing at that moment in time. We do it 3 times a year when they come in from summer, around October, end of September, and then again in winter, and then one in spring. And it kind of gives us that broad view as a ELA department, and we look at it and we say, okay, who's falling below the 50th percentile? Who do we need to intervene on? Do we need to look at more data to find out what's going on with that student? And the other data that we look at is then we go to our PALS assessment at the younger grades. We usually do that in 4K through 2nd grade. And it does a more detailed look at those foundational skills. So we then dig a little deeper and say, okay, does this match? Does their map testing match with their PALS?
Are they doing just fine? Are they needing more support? Or are they needing enrichment? And so that guides us in that way. As we get into the older grades, we look at the forward exam, because that's an important key component to our understanding of how a student's doing. Are they able to succeed on that Wisconsin State forward exam? And then we go even further on our third point of data, and we look at our core programs that we purchased. In 4K through 5th grade, we have the benchmark core program, and in 6th through 12th grade, we use the My Perspectives. And all of those have different assessments along the way that we give the students for each unit. There's midpoint assessments, and those are done within the classroom as the teachers are moving forward in their programs. The tier 2 is really when we go, okay, this student is dipping below our goal of the 50th percentile, what can we do? And maybe we do a little further assessment then to see where exactly that specific area of need is. And if they need more, sometimes that can just be done in the regular classroom in those instructional times that the teachers have. So usually they set it up where they do a whole group activity for a certain amount of time, and then they go to instructional levels, which is differentiated instruction, and they might pull students over in different little groups according to their levels. And at that time, if a student is dipping a little low in, say it's sight words in the younger grades, then they might give them a little boost in that. So that's sort of where that tier 2 is. But tier 2 can also be done with an interventionist in a small group, whether it's push in or pull out, with 4 to 6 students to help support that staff member or that grade level. So it can be very flexible in that way. Tier 3 is where we say, okay, now this student did not make significant growth while we were doing those tier 2 activities to give them that boost. We need to go a little more aggressive and do a little bit more assessment, more official research-based assessments, and find some rigor that helps produce that significant growth so that they can catch up to their peers. Does that make sense so far? I know, I'm trying to make it as simple as possible, but not too simple either, because it's not. It's a very complicated, fluid activity that happens. And then I did not want to forget, because we have a fantastic program here for this. I know I deal a lot with the students that are dipping low, but we also make sure that we look at those kids that are soaring really high and need to go above and beyond what the classroom teacher can support. And so 3rd through 12th grade now, we have a wonderful gifted program called the GATE, okay, and the person doing it has some criteria that they follow too. What they look at are those MAP scores, because that's our universal screener, and see if they have 3 years or more of those super high scores and levels that are soaring above their peers. And then they also do a cognitive abilities test to confirm that that is true, that this child really does need some enrichment. And then they put that in place. And she did want you to know that with her program, you know, the level of need and opportunity every year kind of changes because it is fluid. So then she meets the needs of the students on a yearly basis. It could look different. But she does make sure that she gives them support in that way. So I think the program is fantastic. It looks wonderful. How does it all work? And I'm down in this bottom part here. How does it work? Well, first, we do our MAP testing to show, you know, the 50% or below. Okay, that's our first data point. The next data point we look at is either PALS or forward. And then the third one would be our core program. And I remember when I was being taught, I always thought of it as a really good catchphrase for me to remember. 3 points of data makes it true. You want to look at a student and say, you know, they're really high in this test, they're really high in this test, they're really high in this test. You can assume that child is really high and you need to give them that enrichment support, or vice versa, right? So that's really what this whole concept of the continuum of support is. And it seems to be working very well here. And we even step up the bar a little bit and make sure that that 50 to 60% doesn't need something here. So which is very impressive. Now each of these individuals coming up are going to break down each little cluster of grade levels and what they do with the core programs. So any questions from my part? I know that was a lot really fast. So I know it was important for you to know, what we're teaching, and that's what they're going to talk about a little more, and why we use all that data, and it really does guide our instruction. It drives our our need to help whichever students need that help at that moment of time. And it's meant to be very fluid. We meet all the time as teams, as different collaborative teams to look at that data. You know, like we just had our winter map scores, and we just did our PALs at the younger grades. And so we really do get back together and meet, discuss, look at what it looks like in the classroom. A lot of teacher input goes into that too. So it's been working very well for us. All right, I'm gonna let,
So
I
you
guess-
track, you track the student all the way through their,
yeah, we are able to track the student all the way through their school career. Yeah, yeah. Mhm. All right, I think 4K's gonna go first. I'm not sure who's going.
yeah, I'm for.
You can just hit the space bar and it'll move to your side.
Hi, I'm Katie Hewins. I teach kindergarten, and I get the joy of talking about 4K, K1, and 2 tonight. So in 4K, they really start by learning the alphabet. What are the letters? What do they look like, and how to write them. So they also bring in Handwriting Without Tears, which is another program we have here in addition to Benchmark, and it really breaks down how to write a letter, how to make it. We talked about how letters have straight lines, curved lines, some are both. And they start to do that, and they introduce a letter every week in 4K. So that's something they really do. And they do a lot of review, a lot of reteach, a lot of hands-on learning, and a lot of visuals. They also do a lot of read-alouds and focus on concepts of print and concepts of a word. So in a sentence, there's not just letters, but letters make up words, and that's one of their main focuses as well. They also in 4K do lots of observations during large group, but then they also do a lot of small group learning and rotations to really get some more small group one on like one teacher versus 4 kids versus 1 versus 20. And really get to know those kiddos a lot better and where their needs are at. They also do formal instruction. They do a lot of PALS assessments in 4K and do that 3 times a year to progress monitor the kiddos along the way. In 4K, sometimes always the skills aren't grasped at that age just because the child maybe is super young and not ready, but with that reteaching and reviewing, their goal is to get a little bit of that start before they move on to what I teach is kindergarten, so that'll be the next one. Kindergarten and first grade are slightly similar, so we kind of put them together to introduce them. We do the Benchmark universe, and it includes reading, writing, and phonics. We do a lot of whole group instruction and always kind of start our day that way with a mini lesson, a read aloud, a shared reading, something like that. And then we usually break out into our small group instruction, where then we're able to focus on a reading strategy and guided reading books. And we usually do that through stations. So in kindergarten, we actually rotate. I have 5 stations. We rotate every 12 minutes. And we're really blessed this year that they have a teaching time with the teacher, and they also get another adult instruction through the Title I resource program. So they're getting 2 adult groups, which I see this year as making a huge impact on the kiddos and their success. In first grade, they have a really heavy emphasis that's placed on the learning of the phonics sounds and rules. They are given opportunities to apply the rules and sounding out words and the spelling of words. They start to do a lot more spelling tests in first grade. Students are learning to read in preparation for them, learning to read in preparation for them to reading to learn. So that's kind of where that transition happens. In addition to the Benchmark material, we have been doing some add-ins with Haggerty, Orton Gillingham, and Jolly Phonics, which are all really a little bit more hands-on pieces that can help integrate throughout the classroom for all kids. On to grade 2. So in grade 2, they also do the Handwriting Without Tears. They start the year with that, really kind of review the letters, make sure they know how to write the letters, writing fluency, and pencil grip formation from the start. They then have a lot of writing instruction that starts to begin in 2nd grade with the emphasis on mini lessons from the Benchmark built in and working on improving that sentence structure and fluency. They then learn, they teach writers how to structure their ideas by gathering them and then putting them onto the paper so that they're a little bit more organized on the paper versus just shouting them out there. They also have a really high emphasis on phonics in second grade as well, with the focus of syllable patterns so that they can hopefully become better readers and spellers. Each week they do focus on a pattern. They do a focus on a pattern and 10 sight words a week in second grade. Their reading block is also very similar to the rest of us. They start with that mini lesson with the whole group and then break out into small group and do reading rotation centers as well in second grade. They also, along with the rest of us, like she's saying, is we use MAP throughout the year 3 times a year to progress monitor, along with other assessments from the benchmark program in addition to PALS. And those assessments are what drive our instruction throughout the year for all the kiddos. So that is up to second grade, and I'm gonna hand it over.
All right. My name is Joel Shelsky. I teach 4th grade here. And I'm the representative for 3 through 5. I did meet with Mr. Skiba and Mrs. Thomas from 3rd grade and Mrs. Ayer from 5th grade, so we all took part in the conversation and what we included on this slide. You'll hear a lot of the same things that Katie mentioned in terms of what we use for instruction. I kind of broke it into 2 parts. How do you teach language arts? And then we get down to the bottom and talk more about the data part of it. Components for teaching language arts include word work or spelling, whole group reading, which is where we introduce and review comprehension and vocabulary skills. Small group reading, where we look to support more specific skill needs and then review some of those comprehension skills that we've been working on, vocabulary, and build fluency, and then when need, address word attack skills. As you get older, the kids have a little bit less need for that portion of language arts instruction, so it looks a little bit different. And then there's a writing component. Usually in grades 3 through 5, there's 1 or 2 large group reading lessons each day. Like Katie had stated, usually we start with that large group lesson, then we break into, then I do a word work lesson, and then small group reading lessons, and then a writing lesson at the end. But everybody kind of organizes their days differently based on when you have specials, when you have lunch and those type of things. It's not always uniform all across the board. You kind of organize it the way that's going to be most effective for you. Students engage in large group work, small group work, and also work independently. And then here's some pieces too that I know they use in younger grades too. Reader's theater, which is kind of like just the way it sounds. It's a book that the kids use and they practice different parts. It's like putting on a play, but without props. So they'll practice that for a week. And it really just, the intention there is to build that fluency, that expression in your reading. And then the neat part is a lot of times teachers will coordinate with other classrooms and the kids go into those classrooms and present to other classrooms. And I know my kids in 4th grade enjoy hearing younger kids read because it kind of brings them back because they remember those stories from when they were younger too. And then it gives them a chance to compliment those students when they come in and do the reading in front of them. We use Google in different capacities at each grade level, but we use Gmail, Slides, Docs, Classroom, and then just Google website. For communication between students and teachers and also students to students when we peer edit some of our writing, that's how we share our writing typically. And then as well as to complete assignments, we use Google Classroom for that. Each reading unit has a student book, and I passed some of those out for you guys just to take a look at if you're interested in. I think one of the neatest things in this current series that we have is each unit in reading is typically about 3 weeks long, and there's 6 stories, usually 5 stories, and the last one's a poetry, a poem, which is kind of nice. It's a good way to get poetry into the reading. But there's opportunities for the kids to annotate, to take notes. Highlights, they mark them up, as much as we talk about it in the classroom. And I feel like it makes that learning a little bit more real to them, as opposed to just reading it in the book and not having a chance to highlight things, circle things, take notes on things. There's a writing book as well that you guys can see, and we use that very similar for annotating. And then for the writing piece too, it's nice to use as a mentor text. So when you talk about fan fiction, to be able to point out what fan fiction looks like to kids and how it's used by different authors so that they can have some ideas when they do their own writing. And then that's something they can personalize more. the reading series does a nice job building background with multiple genres, support reading units, and then also in the word workbooks. The word workbooks that you guys have, those are what we would use more for spelling, for word works. So there's word lists in there that we practice, but then there's also passages in there that we can work with too. So I guess it's one of the things I like. There's a lot of opportunities to read, not just from one book, but from multiple different sources. Let's see. Reading Stamina is promoted daily through Read to Self Time. Several additional resources are used to support language skills. These are just some of them. Teachers use Brain Pop Junior, Scholastic News, ReadWorks, Kids A to Z. Those are all, Scholastic News is a paper copy usually, but it's digital as well. Brain Pop Junior, ReadWorks, Kids A to Z, those all provide digital reading opportunities, which it's good to have a little bit of both for kids to get used to having to read something digitally, but also having paper copies that they can read and hold on to. How to use data to drive instruction. Math data, as Katie talked about and Debbie talked about, is used to break down those comprehension skills. So if we have students that need more work in literacy elements or in informational text, we can look closely at that. MobiMax is used by, I know 3rd grade uses that, 5th grade uses that. I gotta try it out. MobiMax is used to monitor reading levels. Otherwise, you use something called the Fontes and Canal Kit, or a teacher's language we just call FNBs. So that's what we use to find out and make sure that kids are progressing reading level-wise throughout the school year. And then the end of the unit assessments are used. There's also weekly assessments that can be used in benchmark, just to make sure that the skills that you are teaching in the unit, students are recognizing and applying those same skills, at the end of the unit. Let's see, and then the last one, there's a beginning of the year, mid-year, and end of the year comprehension assessment, which I really like. That goes with benchmark. That's what I use to drive a lot of my ID time at the end of the day, so I know what kids need a little bit extra support in comprehension strengths. And that's what I have.
So how long have you had this benchmark company, Richie?
I think it said since 2019. I think it was our first year. And then I think Bridget's going to talk about that more at the end.
Okay.
I actually believe I looked in the notes, and the staff, when they decided to go with it in 2019, you had it before that, and they liked it so much they went with the new version in 2019. So they've been using it for a while. So
there were some nice updates when
Yeah.
it was part of the reason that we liked that series.
Yeah.
So I'm Heather Spetz. I teach English 10, AP at the junior level, AP at the senior level, and CAP oral communications.
I'm Sarah Moraski. I teach 9th grade English, 11th grade English, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade intervention, high school intervention, dyslexia intervention, and anything else that you want to throw at me.
And I'm Dawn Shire, teach middle school language arts.
And so we consider ourselves more than reading teachers. We teach all facets of the language, whether it's written, speaking, everything that the standards cover, speaking and listening. We adopted My Perspectives for 6th through 12th grade, we use that through the 9th grade and some of it into the 10th grade. The 11th and 12th grade and the 11th grade uses My Perspectives in 2 of the courses, but there are articulated courses with NWTC that have their own curriculum. And the AP curriculum has its own written curriculum that's been approved by the AP board as well as the CAP. So there is some differentiation between My Perspectives and how we differentiate our program. We offer other sources too. We use Scholastic, Scope Magazine, Newsella, Memby, MobiMax, and as well as the College Board materials that they give us. We focus on language, speaking, and listening, both in the content and reading selections and in isolation. We cover all the genres that are required in the standards. We teach writing by modeling and through all parts of the writing process, whether it's pre-writing, drafting, revising, and editing. And as a staff, we've gone through and tracked not just the English department, but all the departments where we're doing what writing, and we have analyzed that and seen where we have overlap. And I felt like we've done some good work on that over the years. Language and speaking are taught, or language and listening are taught in mini lessons, and they're in conjunction with our literature units. For students who need extra support, we use our intervention periods to fill the gaps. For students that are more ready, we use enrichments, and we have our gifted and talented program. We use the Battle of the Books. We attend plays. We have field trips. We have advanced placement in college courses. We have newspaper and yearbook. We have found that kids come from elementary loving to read, and we want to foster that. I know over the years, I have tried to give students more choice, and I'm finding that they like more choice the older that they get. And so we've been doing quite a bit of reading. I know I've got several kids in sophomore English who are on their 11th free reading novel for the year, which is pretty outstanding. And I think that's one of the best things that our elementary, when they come to us, they love to read. And we want to continue to foster that. Our content teachers also have reading strategies, and I think as a high school, for many years, we worked at how can we get every content area to be reading teachers in their area? What reading strategies can we do? It's been quite a few years since we've revisited that, probably about 12, but that's an area where I think we can really benefit. Talk about who's doing research, who's teaching what strategies for nonfiction and fiction, and I think that's something that as a school we could revisit in our faculty meetings, reading strategies across the curriculum. How do we use data to drive instruction? Well, down in junior high, they use the map, and then they go to the forward. And then in 9th grade, we go from the map and the forward into the Aspire. Now, when you talk about a universal screener, there's a little bit of a gap there, because at the high school level, there really isn't a universal screener. We're being tested on the ACT, but that doesn't always align with the standards. And so you have some gray area there. Our textbook offers beginning, middle, and end of the year tests, and the AP board offers many opportunities for tests. And we have rubrics that show us how to grade their writing, and they have those, so I mean, do we have a high school universal screener? We've always talked that we should make one because we'd make $1 million. Because there's not really one out there. And so we've bridged the gap between that ACT test. And as a department, and across the curriculum, we have over the years developed an ACT program where the English department practices the 4 types of questions that are on the ACT. Right now we're doing it twice a month, giving kids strategies on how to do that. And over the years we've seen tremendous growth on that test. Does it get tedious for the kids? It does, but afterwards they're very thankful because typically they don't have to worry about that. And when we started that, it's a time test. And you and I all know that when you put a timer on somebody reading, it changes the outcome. So our philosophy on that was we wanted to give them opportunities to be timed, and so we do that, and that has helped us in all ways. I mean, reading, finding answers based on the 5 types of questions they ask is important to practice. And we also want the kids to find out what their strengths and weaknesses are when we look at that. So we have really great data on that. What else did we say here? Sam, off task. Do you have any questions for me? I know you've seen this. We have a gifted and talented. We've said that already. I've said everything on there. Do you have any questions for us?
Heather, you mentioned reading across the curriculum and maybe revisiting that.
Mm-hmm.
Might there be a need for teachers in other areas to have some updated training?
Well, I think so. I think it's good to have training in both reading and writing.
Right.
Because a lot of times content areas teachers get uncomfortable grading kids' writing. We do it all the time, so we're comfortable.
Right.
Over the years, I think 3 or 4 times in my career, the English department has led initiatives where everybody's brought in a writing assignment, and we talk about how you grade those things.
Mm-hmm.
And we've done the same thing with reading over the years, where we bring in things from social studies or science, and we talk about different approaches for teaching kids strategies how to break that reading down. We haven't done that in probably 12 years. Bill Beal, or what's his name? Doug Beal. Doug Beal, we did that. That was 12 years ago probably. But we did that as a county. You know, we met at Southern Door and the whole county was there. You know, we brought in Kelly Gallagher for writing. We've done things like that. And those are part of those initiatives. But should you revisit that? Of course. We get new staff members all the time. And so it's important to be on a cycle with that. So everybody's on the same page. And everybody understands how much time it takes to grade writing. You know.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Yeah, I am about reading and writing, but is forensic skills involved at all in your English program?
Well, yes, I teach, you know, in English 10, I teach a speech unit where they have to deliver a 4-minute speech. We do poetry readings. I don't do all the forensics categories, but I try to tailor assignments. Like if kids have a choice on a board, they can choose. I try to make different forensics categories my choice, whether it's poetry or storytelling, or you know what I mean? I give kids that choice, but they have to do presentation in my class, much to their
And I work with my enrichment middle school students with forensic skills, the different categories.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's really important. Anything else?
Thank you.
Sure, thanks for having us.
I just have one small thing to add. As a relative newcomer, this is only my second year here, and having been at lots of different schools and different kinds of schools in the state, and having been a former administrator who used to evaluate those schools and specifically their literacy programs, and having had to build a RTI program from scratch as an administrator, the reason I took this job is because you guys have one of the best systems I've ever seen. I would have benefited so much from having scaffolding like we do for ACT tests. I was thrown in a room and handed a pencil. And I was an honors student and who couldn't take tests. So just know that, you know, if you've never really dove deep into other schools, I have, and had to evaluate them and had to, you know, help them make really hard decisions. And one of the reasons I chose to come here is because I knew I would learn something. So, I mean, not to like, I can say this because I'm brand new and I can't take credit for any of it. I'm tooting their horns, not my own. I'm really, like, you guys have something really extraordinary here, and it's only getting better.
Well, I get the last slide that deals with the textbook cycle for the English language arts. I'm Bridget Bowers. I am the district library media specialist. So I work with 4K through 12th grade students and the students who take online and distance learning classes. 6 years ago is when we started our contract in 2019 with our current textbook. And the last school year covered for the contract will be the 2024-2025 school year. And the district contract for our current core programs, which we talked about earlier, will end July 31st, 2025. That's our English language arts presentation. And if you have any questions for any of our members here, we'd love to answer them.
And I don't ask that you give us a big summary on this, but I'm really curious as English teachers, the impact of COVID. Can you give us a pulse on what happened to your kids and what you might be seeing in the area of reading
Well,
and learning?
you know, when I think of what it did to me, you know, I had to, I guess when I looked at that reading, I've seen in this last year, I guess I have had more kids bring me books and say, you'll like this.
Oh, wow.
I think, and I'm teaching that sophomore class right now, and I'm just going to be real honest, that is one of the very, very finest classes that I've ever taught in my career. And those kids love to read. And I'm on my 6th book from kids they bring me a book and say, here, read this. So I think kids are, you know, we say that COVID it was difficult, and it was, but I think there's a lot of kids who are reading and did more reading because of COVID. And I think families were conscientious about those things. And you know, I've always been, I think Sevastopol's got a great community, and I think the kids were home with their families. And of course, I'm teaching that 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and I have nothing but great things to say about them. But, you know, I think kids are reading, the kids that I'm seeing are reading a lot. From the top of the class to the bottom of the class. You know, I've had kids that are struggling readers, and they're on their 3rd and 4th free reading book of the year. And so you know, I have to give a plug to our community that
That's
we
great
have
to hear.
well.
We so often hear about all the negative, so it's great to hear a positive that might have come out.
You know, and I think we're also glad to be back together. And you can talk about things and write about things and share your writing. So that's good. It was difficult. And I mean, I hated not being with the kids. And I think there were many of them that felt that way. So.
Well, and just to kind of add to that, like Heather gets to teach all the really high flyers. She's teaching AP and, you know, the kids in the end. And, you know, I get the joyful challenge, truly, of the puzzles of not only the kids who, okay, we're still figuring them out, and COVID gaps and everything else, but the highest percentage of transfers into our district come in middle school and high school where there's puzzles, and we're like, okay, we have half your data, we don't know where you came from, you know, are you eating breakfast, like all of these various and sundry things. And the biggest hurdle that I've noticed, truly, in all humans, not just our students, is stamina. Getting them used to what it was like to have the rigor that we have here, and not being able to throw them right back into it. But I think we are there. Like, I feel.
Well, I don't think we're quite there. I mean, I'm not giving the homework that I did 3 years ago. Kids, I think the stamina is a big part. And kids are needing balance more right now than ever before. And we require, you know, like me, I'm always figuring out ways to do it better and be more challenging. But so is the basketball team. You know, they add 9 games to their schedule, and so does the volleyball team. And you know, as a parent, you know, my kids were ultra involved. But as a parent, you step back and say, you want them to be balanced. You know, you want them to have dinner with their family at night. And so I want to try to strike that balance about, I want to work smarter and not harder, and I think I'm getting old enough to do that now. I'm getting better to the point where they don't have to have as much homework, because I can get them to know what they need to know while they're with me. So, you know, I think we have to strike a balance, and I think COVID brought that out of us. We're looking at how do we make our kids healthy, and you know,
And ourselves.
And ourselves. You know, and what does health look like? Mental health and physical health.
And the only thing I wanted to add is that we've noticed in the younger grades that the pandemic did affect a key part of letter formation, because that was very challenging to do with packets or on the computer. So, but the grades above where you'd normally teach that have really stepped it up, and we figured out a way to like incorporate that in there. So if you missed it in kindergarten, you're getting it in first grade. And so that sort of, I think, component is key right now in those younger grades with those foundational skills. Like everything in 4K that was given before, it might not have all happened. So that means that we're adding on, and that's why the extra support, because we know early intervention is huge, is in Katie's room and Megan's room. And because we want to make sure that we give that support, because we know they might have not got it as well as they would have before that. Does that make sense? But it's going very well.
With being halftime last year for most of the year, we found that when they came to kindergarten, there was some missing links there, because they were, you know, they tried to put in so much, but especially being 4K, you can only send home so many packets for littles to do, when a lot of that really has to be in-person learning. So they did their best they could, but there were some missing links, and I feel like we are, I don't want to say closing those gaps, but we're working on it. We're working on closing those gaps.
I feel like we're making really good strides.
Yeah. And we actually, we do feel blessed in the English language arts area that just like you were saying, you can read a book at home. So there was those missing gaps of like the formalities and those foundational skills, but parents could read books to their little kids, or, you know, so we found that that part is that love of reading. This year, my kids love, we're working on the reading stamina part, but they love to listen to me read. They love it. They love to listen to books and talk about books and characters. So that's something that we see that they love this year.
Right, and I have to say that our English and math departments during COVID, that's what we focused on. And so, you know, I got to use all these resources, and I can remember Sarah Brandt saying to me, you really don't make them write this much all the time, do you? Because, you know, I had all these people helping me respond to kids. So did they write as much and read as much? Yeah, I think we really worked them pretty hard. And I had a bunch of people helping me grade, so that was really nice.
And I would just say, like in the 3, 4, 5 area, I think, like Heather has said, there's families that did a lot of reading, but then there's families that did not do as much, and the kids didn't get as much reading because they weren't here. So for me, as a 4th grade teacher, I feel like there's more kids this year that need a little bit more support, like through our title program, than I usually have. Not that they're to a point where they need more than that, but they need more. There's more kids in that area that are in that 20th to 50th percentile for MAP, let's say, that just need more support for reading because they didn't get as much last year. And it was at the fault of no one. It's just there wasn't enough time. I know a lot of teachers consolidated or broke down their units in reading and writing so that we tried to focus on like the big rocks last year when we were not full-time. So that was a good effort, but I do feel like this year there were more gaps, more students that need to be assisted this year than I've seen in the past.
Thank you very much. Thank you all for your thoughtful comments. But I just want to say this room is just full of passion. I really, really applaud you and respect the work that you do. It comes out in your presentation. You all did a beautiful job.
Good, we hope we look like we like it. The night after parent-teacher conference. Yeah. My husband said, you're going back out there again?
Thanks for coming in.
Thank
you, guys.
Awesome.
Well, those were 2 great presentations, so we'll see if student discipline can be as interesting.
So top back the file.
I'm going to juggle it for the sake of time. We'll take that off. All right. For starters, I think a lot of us have kind of an image of what discipline at school is, partly based on what our own experience was or wasn't. I'm sure a number of you never made it to the office for any reason. So you wouldn't necessarily have had this experience. Other things too, when you go to grad school for getting your license, they spend some time teaching you how to discipline. I would equate that to learning behind the wheel from a book. Certainly when you get out on the road, there's a lot more that you learn and experience doing it firsthand. For myself, I've been doing this for about 20 years. And, you know, as I said before, it seems real straightforward, but as you do it a number of years, you start picking up little things along the way. I'll just walk through kind of what a general practice would be, starting off with incidents. You know, it's anywhere from, I just threw some up here, but food being thrown, maybe a student being disrespectful, maybe as serious as fighting. Then it goes to the level of involvement. It might be something that gets handled in a classroom. I know, especially at the elementary level, the teachers have the students all day. They handle a lot of that discipline in their classrooms because they know the students and they know how to address what they're looking for. But sometimes that increases, it gets brought to the principal's attention. we take a look at the situation and determine whether or not it needs to include other people. I threw up our liaison officer up there, for example, depending on how serious it is. The next step would then be fact gathering. If it gets to the office, it's not enough just to take, what the referral says. It's really important, especially so that the student themselves has a voice. You need to do your due diligence to make sure that all parties are being heard, you're getting all the information, so you can truly make a good consequence for what the action was that the student did. Let's see. There's a range of consequences. We describe them as progressive discipline, starting off with maybe a verbal consequence, a warning, working your way up. There's lunch and recess detentions. It might result in a bus suspension if it's something that happened on the bus. After-school detentions, in-school suspensions, out-of-school suspensions. We've not had one since I've been here. Expulsion certainly would be something that would be on there. And I've also included some restorative practices, depending on what it is that happened. It might necessitate having students get together so that they can try and catch things up. One of the things is you want the progressive discipline to get to a point where students' behavior changes. You don't jump right to a suspension. You see, can you do something smaller along the way? If a student keeps coming back to the office, you're going to increase some of those consequences. For me personally, one of the things that I've talked to students about a lot is choices. Choices have consequences. And if you want good consequences, then you can make good choices. If you make bad choices, you can have bad consequences. But all of that being said, my overall philosophy, I know Adam would think the same way, that we need to consequence the actions and not the kid. The kid should not feel that they are being treated poorly, that it's the choice that they made that needs to be corrected, that they're good ultimately, but they happen to make a bad choice. So let's work on correcting those choices so that they can continue to be a good kid that they are. Some additional steps, we make sure that we contact parents. If it's something really serious, a threat on a bus, for example, then we might do a threat assessment and get a liaison officer involved. There's a number of different people on that committee to see, is this something that needs to rise to another level, or is it something that we just need to make notes of and keep that for anything future? Yeah, absolutely.
Threat assessments that we have done over the past couple of years, we've learned a lot. We've learned a lot what we need to, how we need to question, where we take that information, and who needs to get that information as soon as possible. So the past couple of years have really shown us through that team that we get any information that folks can give us, it is our responsibility to make sure that that information goes to the right person immediately. Sometimes we can't make the determination about what a threat would mean, but if we get it into the hands of people who can, that's what we need to do here at Sevastopol. So we've been more aware of that and been more forthcoming with information that we get from students, from teachers, from all people in the community, that we have a liaison officer here for a reason. So if they have the information, then they can take it to the next level to make sure that nothing goes unnoticed or untouched. So we really, really kind of tightened the reins on that one, I would say, in the past couple of years here.
And then other things that we take into consideration is the student, the special education student. There are students who, by their very nature, they make impulsive choices. Is it fair for that student to be treated exactly the same as other students? Do we consequence them? Absolutely. But it necessitates having meetings afterwards so we can sit down and say, with this particular student, are we doing everything we need to for that student? We have all the supports in place.
And that's one of the main reasons why I'm up here now. I don't wear the same hat in discipline as Mr. Hiltz and Mr. Baer. I'm up here as a pupil services director because I'm the advocate for those kids who are special education students. That is my role. But what I really appreciate is that working with the principals, it's always communication, it's always collaboration. If something happens with one of our students with special ed, I do know, and I'm at the table, and I'm listening, and I'm trying to understand, based on their disability and based on the actions and based on the consequence, is it an appropriate consequence? So we're at the table really figuring that out together, along with the pupil services staff. So the teachers, the associates, they're also there as well. So I do wear that different hat. One of the things that we do within special education, though, and oftentimes, it's the confidentiality of the student. So a lot of those consequences or what happens in an IEP meeting, it stays in the IEP team. But some of the things that we do is we change programming for students. We also change the level of support that they might need throughout the day. We communicate and collaborate with our outside providers. Not all the time do people know that that stuff is happening, but behind the scenes and within those meetings, those really important conversations are happening. So, like what Mr. Hilt said, we want to change the behavior over time. We also have something that's called a behavior intervention plan. So that's a specific plan for a student who has a disability that has got more behaviors that, where there has to be progressive steps on how staff approach the student and how they react. So we really try and lay out those plans so there's some consistency and continuity built in. So all people who are working with the students really get a sense of how to handle that situation that's safely for not only the student, but the staff that is working with them as well. So a lot of that does happen in multiple IEP meetings. This year has been pretty extraordinary. We've had a lot of situations and students and all of that, but we're taking care of those things the best that we can, to change their patterns of behavior and give them the support that they need to be successful in school.
And something else too, I'm just going to touch on this briefly, but we have a program that's called Educator Handbook, and it's an online program where teachers can enter referrals, administrators can enter referrals for student behavior. So it gives us a permanent record of those things. It's really nice because a teacher will enter something, it gets to the administrators, we address the situation and whatever consequences, we enter that, and then the message goes back to the teachers so they know how it was handled and the fact that it was handled. It also gives us additional data so we can see are a lot of behaviors happening as you'd expect. Hallways, playground are probably going to be your highest areas. Classrooms, is it happening a certain time of day? Certain subjects, are there things that are affecting a particular student? And seeing if there's some things that set that student off so we can try and adjust some of that. Talks about like seating arrangements, those kinds of things as well are in there. It breaks down the number of actions that were done, how many detentions have been issued, how many suspensions, so on. So we can take a look back at that. Then it also gives kind of a breakdown of the different grade levels. And
that's a program we're using in the school now?
Yes, currently using. And it's really nice to have. I did not have that at the other districts that I was in. There were spots to enter some of that, but it was not where you could pull that data out easily to take a look at it and make some adjustments. Again, if you're seeing some stuff happening on the playground, maybe you need more supervision. It's happening in the hallways, maybe you need the teachers in the halls watching things going on. So.
I have a couple questions, Renee.
Yes.
Because I think this is a very complicated challenge today, and probably always actually. And so I appreciate what you're saying, because a couple of comments to waste some time, because this is very important to me. So I recognize, and I say this to a few teachers, as classroom management is, each one does it different, and I think parents need to be involved. And I'll come back to the parent activity, what you're seeing. And then the administrative team. So I'm just curious, do we have like the staff? So recently, I don't know how many years ago, we're really working hard with inclusion. We've been doing this for a while. And the challenge of every consequence is different. I absolutely get that. My 3 kids each have different consequences. Also, so I get just with 3, so I can only imagine how complicated it is. But the trending, the question I would always come back to that you said, which was wonderful, is it changing student behavior? That's the challenge. Are we getting that feedback, and are we finding that, or based on this documented process over years, is there an area that could be improved? Are we seeing that? So I don't maybe need an answer on that, but those are the challenges in the school that I'm curious about. And because I will say this, and I agree with a great community, by the way, but I also think some parents are very busy. Multiple jobs and all that kind of stuff. My mom stayed home. A lot of people can't do that now, So that's what I'm wondering, and that's why I wanted to know the consequences, because if the school, hardworking staff isn't getting the support, and the admin team and the parents, what is our recourse? And that's the challenge I want to make sure, or understand in the school, because, my concern is, and I think each fact, every teacher I've talked with for my kids, because I'm the one who goes to class, parent-teacher conferences, so thanks for putting up with me. But since my 21-year-old was in school, I've been doing this, and everyone handles it differently. My concern on all of this is class disruption, right? And at what point is the class disruption at a point that as a school we need to do something about it because we're hurting education of everyone in that room? And right, so kids said there's disruption in every class. And it's a fine line, so I don't expect an answer, but that's the challenge is, are we putting enough focus on that with this awesome dynamic community we have, enter COVID challenges, and like some of the gaps grew between kids, some of it did great, that was great to hear, and others maybe fell more behind. So that's the challenge of this, and I appreciate the structure, and it sounds good there, and I just want to make sure that with inclusion and different consequences across the board, it's complex. So does the staff who are dealing with that to do classroom management, who I don't know if you get training in inclusion, I don't even know how that is. And not only that, as other kids, my kid's having a bad week, first of all, I want to hear about it. But so are we getting that support? So it's more just an offer of, having kids and respecting how hard you guys work is, if there's anything we can do for training and classroom training, from the board, all we can do is advocate for resources and stuff, But I think it matters. And the question I would ask for all of your staff, to give yourself feedback to yourself, is when the disruptions in class are becoming an impact on our education, that should be elevated. And you guys should know you have support for resources on that because, not only the state of Wisconsin, we all need to improve our education. The numbers when I went through school were way, way better. So Sevastopol is awesome, by the way. But our national averages are not what I want to compare it to. So that's why I think it's very important, because when you have disruption, you're not learning. And, and each class is different. I have an 8th grader, so whatever that means. But every class is different, right? So it's very important to me. I talk a lot about it, and I appreciate you talking about it. But I also want to make sure you guys are challenging yourself, because you all have said that, and I love to hear that. Continuous process improvement is the word I use, but it's what you're saying. And I think this is an area that's challenging, and as parents get more and more stressed and overworked, I want to make sure the school is supported and kids have a shot. So, anyways, I'm rambling a little bit. Thank you for the brief, but I think that's the concern. I've gotten more confidence here, but my read, listening to the kids and stuff like that is, I believe there's room for improvement. I don't have data to back that up, and hopefully I'm 100% wrong. So that's what I would challenge is, how we doing.
And I would say, no discipline process I've been anywhere is 100% perfect. We continue to try, and quite honestly, I would rather under discipline, knowing that I'm going to have another chance working at that student, than over disciplining and lose that student, because now they're angry about the consequence. They're not looking at the choice that they made. But I think we do have some aggressive stuff. If there's something that happens in the classroom, I know that the teachers do their very best to handle it in the room. Certain teachers have different tolerance levels for what they have. But I think the consistent part is when it gets to a level that they're uncomfortable with, they're writing a referral, it's getting to the office, we address it, and any referral that comes through, a parent is contacted and involved as a part of that process. So we want to make sure that that message is also being conveyed at home.
Where do the counseling and mental health services and maybe social services with families come into the whole process?
I think if we start seeing repeat offenders, they're doing some similar things, we get them involved. If it's something serious enough, depending on the nature of what it is that's happening, we make sure that we're going to get our counselors involved. Some of that too will come through the conversations we have with parents, and the parents will admit that there's difficulties going on at home that need to be addressed, and they actually ask, can my child see the school counselor on a regular basis? If it really gets serious enough, we've got the STRIDE program.
Right. For our own counselors.
I think the teaching staff here and the administrators are very, very comfortable reaching out to the counselors saying this is what's going on, and I know the counselors are receptive to that. The one thing that I will say for more training, the more complex the needs that we see in kids, the more complex, training, that's what we need. We are seeing more. We are seeing more, so right now we're kind of catching up to the more complicated needs because we haven't had that training, so our eyes haven't been completely wide open to it. We're dealing with it, we're working with it every day. So it's nice to hear that the support is here. I knew that it always was, but I do think it's something that we have to look at as a district too. Does everybody
That's like
feel
your
comfortable?
scores in your reports that you have.
Does everybody
I
feel
don't fully
comfortable?
understand those scores, and I'm trying to understand that more. You always brief us on it.
Yeah.
I'm paying attention to that.
They should, because they're going up. So
Right,
we would
that's-
have to respond to that in the
yes.
appropriate way to make sure in an inclusion setting that every teacher, every associate feels comfortable dealing with complicated behaviors.
And they
You know,
should
So
be
that's our
able to get that.
responsibility to look at that and to hear and to listen and to see what we can do better. So I appreciate that because there are more complicated needs, for sure.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Any other questions for Mrs. Markgraf or Mr. Hiltz? There aren't any, thank you, that was almost as interesting as. I'll take it. It would be more interesting if I had been a real troublemaker in grade school, but it wasn't fun at home and any of that stuff. Okay, we didn't have anyone sign up on the guest comment sheet to sign. Did anyone here want to speak to anything? If not, we'll move to the consent agenda. Is there any item that anyone wishes to have removed from the consent agenda? If not, the consent agenda is approved by consent with the donation from Gerald and Mary Hines for $1,000 to the music department. Thank you very much to them. We'll move to the administrator's reports then, and begin with Mr. Hiltz.
Thank you. Just hit a few highlights. The first one, we had parent-teacher conferences last night. Kudos to all those of you who are here again tonight. So, but I thought they went well. We also had in-service in the morning. One of the things that the elementary staff did, we introduced a computer program called Freckle. It takes students, it gives them a pre-test and then assigns them kind of a level, and then we'll assign assignments so that students can continue practicing on ELA and math. That's one of the things we're hoping to use down the road to try and close some of those gaps that's outside of regular school day. Tomorrow happens to be the 100th day of in-person school learning. I know some of the lower levels are planning on doing some creative things with kids getting dressed up as if they're 100 years old and that kind of stuff, so that should be fun. And then we also sent out the military care package that we were talking about doing as an elementary school. So it was a nice size package and cards for from all the kids. So it's nice.
Any questions? I did see something online that I think the teachers should do. You can enter your picture and then have it make you look like you're 100 years old. Your kids would all love that.
My wife had my daughter do that some years ago. It actually scared her. Like the way she looked.
Mrs. Markgraf.
The only addition that I have, and I think it lends nicely to the discussion on discipline that we had, but looking ahead for summer, professional development for the People Services Department, we're looking at a program called Interoception. And what that is, it is helping kids learn how to independently self-regulate their emotions. When the ELA staff talked about balance and stamina, you know, every student is dealing with that, despite, you know, ability, you know, things that are challenging and things that are just fine. But one of the things that we've seen in pupil services for the kids that we particularly work with is that ability to be able to self-regulate, to have a calm mind, to be able to know what you need and be able to advocate for what you need. So we're really looking into looking at some summer professional development, and then we can bring that into the school year. However, I don't know if that's something that more teachers might be interested in hearing, you know, as well. So really kind of thinking about that. But I know, you know, talking with the staff, they're really, really excited to bring that into their practice to be able to help kids with that skill. It's one that we see lacking, and it's one that we know that we can grow in. So that's I'll have more information about that as we plan it during the summer, but the staff has said, yes, summer's the best time to do that because the in-services, especially coming back to school for a new school year, are entirely too jam-packed with preparation. So
that's how to implement what's your strategy, that's that training and all
yeah,
that.
so, and that's another
I think that
piece.
affects, that's
It is.
everywhere in
So,
life.
yeah, so I brought in kind of a couple of these just to show you that what's your strategy. That was in addition to, so if you walk around the school from, you know, the 4K all the way up into the high school, they do have these posted everywhere. And then again, that's the universal message of, there's something going on, you have a problem, well, let's talk about that. What do you think you should do? And then we are all coaches to help them understand that they are in control of some of this and they can help themselves. So we're helping to build those skills with just this simple phrase. You know,
That's good. I think people with problems might be just a weakness if it's a pronunciation issue or something like that. There's lots of ways to go about it.
Exactly.
Staff will
And
solve
what
it.
the entire staff here is taking on is that coaching mentality of like, you know, let's talk about that. The other thing that's nice is we've asked we'll follow up with that student. If they did use that strategy, ask them how it went and congratulate them for using it too. So it promotes that.
Because I'm sure, you know, actually a lot of great teachers have been doing that for generations. I've had a lot of great that affected me. So just bringing into more training circles, more understanding, that's good. I think that's great.
Yeah, something as simple as this, but then yet something that can be more complicated of that introception, you know, as well. So I think we're on the right path, but we still have room to, you know, improve and take in more suggestions and continue to learn.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have the written reports from Mr. Baer and the athletic director, gift and talent coordinator. Did anybody have questions they had on any of those or comments? Move on to the superintendent's report.
I am on the Door County DEI, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, and we've decided to go with NWTC Mohammed Bey as a consultant. The cost is $40,000. The county has allocated $12,000 towards it. So now the county is in the process of looking for grants and outside sources to make the difference between $12,000 and $40,000 for the work the consultant will do. Officer Hilsebeck has updated our safety flip charts, and we distributed those to the new ones to staff yesterday. And then Mr. Hiltz worked with getting some information from other districts on not open enrollment, but our students that move into district and proof of residency. We have some people that don't tell the truth in the community and aren't honest about their address. And so Mr. Hiltz has taken information from other districts, compiled it. We've passed it on to Mary Gerbig to finalize it so that people, when they come here to register as students, are for sure residents when they say they're residents. So we have some that maybe don't tell us.
So they're lying to come to school. That's awesome.
They'd rather come here than a neighboring
They want to come
school.
here so bad.
They want to come here, so they are fudging the information, yes. So we're trying to tighten that up because it causes some issues and it's
Financial
not,
money heads, yeah.
it's not legal, it's not appropriate, and it's not fair to the other districts, it's not fair to anybody, so we've got to do it by the rules. So that's
In a lot of cases, it's a way around open enrollment. If, for example, we have a class that's full, they will find a relative who lives here, and they will say if that's where they're now residing.
Oh, yeah, we're going to have that waiting.
we do have that problem, right? So it's interesting. I mean, it's a kudos to us that they want to come here, but it's not playing fair
Kudos
to
to
the
the
system.
staff.
But it's not fair to the system, so.
Right, no, I wasn't making light of it.
Right, no, it's a problem in some situations, so.
Anything else? I sent you all, I don't know if you read it, I sent you all that update on the internet and the county. The county's hired a coordinator, but they don't have money, they're not gonna put any money into it, so it's really gonna be up to the municipalities. I don't know where Sevastopol is, and I don't think they started their process yet. Town of Egg Harbor, in our district has, Town of Jacksonport has. So they're working to get service to everyone in their towns, which is like a 3-year process and some money, but the towns are putting the money into it.
The town of Sevastopol does have a committee, and they had a meeting a couple Fridays ago. I got a call at 10 o'clock in the morning saying, hey, the meeting's at 2 o'clock, and I was like, all right, the book at 2, so I told them, let me know when the next meeting is so I can attend and help, but it was a little late notice to call me that.
Each town and municipality has been allocated, I mean, they have funds available, although limited through the broadband federal funding, isn't it? Didn't the town receive something like?
Something, but most of it is gonna have to come, most of it, the guy from Billy's Harbor is kind of the expert on it, will come through grants, like 60% of it for each town they have to write the grants and be on top of that. But that money's out there, so the towns need to get started, so they get their grants in and get the money. So, seems like our towns in our district are working on that.
And is that providing the infrastructure for this, or actually providing it as a town-provided service to all of us?
It's the infrastructure for
To
the
support- to
service,
enable.
so that,
So we don't have the dead spots like we have,
Right.
you just can't.
and it's a 3-year process, like for Jackson, it's like a 3-year process and $1.5 million, so Sevastopol's probably twice or 3 times that. The other thing I wanted to do was we all are, you watch the news in the morning, you hear about school districts, not so much in Wisconsin, but other places where the parents and community are coming to meetings as they should to talk about things, it's mostly COVID and critical race theory, but those meetings are getting really out of hand, and you have people resigning from school boards and officers hauling people away, and I just wanted to thank this community, the parents, the guardians, for supporting the decisions that the people in the school are having to make over the last couple of years to just keep kids in school or being educated. Everybody's not agreed. Some think masking is great, no masking, should in school, should not in school, and everybody should experience their opinion, but it's all been respectful and reasonable and supportive, and it's allowed the school to keep going and the kids to keep learning. So thanks to the community for that. The Property Building and Security Committee meeting, January 28th.
That was when we mostly talked phase 2, right? That was the,
Right.
well, we talked about the field project down there.
Yeah, go ahead. Well,
Well, no, the only thing I was going to say, I thought it was a good meeting. We're talking about phase 2 of the track. That progress continues. I think they're working with the developer to get all fine-tuned details. I didn't pay attention, I don't have all those details, but they're deciding on the building color and all that kind of stuff, but I'm not a color guy. So I thought it was a good meeting, and it seems like we're making progress. My big push is schedule. Let's keep moving, that's what I like to do. But that's all I really had. I think we're making good progress on it. And then,
I think more important than the colors and whatnot was when we flipped the
yeah.
bathrooms, athletic trainer, and officials room from north to south. That was a huge move
Yeah,
that
that
day.
was a great observation. Whoever had that was a great observation.
Well, this goes back to the CFAC. What I love, Kyle brought a group of people in, the trainer was in, that's who flipped that. Now, I wouldn't think of that. That was a great
I
idea.
think Brooke came up with one of the suggestions about when parents bring their children or something, we had the bathrooms way on the other side,
Yeah.
And things like, flip the buildings so the bathrooms are more accessible, and,
Yeah.
just things like that,
People input, it was great.
Yep. And Mr. Lukey brought 3 students in that
Yeah.
are going to be studying
We have 3
architecture.
seniors that are thinking about being
I think they
architects, so
enjoyed
it's
it.
good for them to see
I
us
think they enjoyed
fly
the
back.
experience.
Yeah, that was great.
I did follow up with each afterwards, and they said they enjoyed it, because I didn't know. And it would have been okay if they didn't enjoy it either, then they can make a choice of that's not what they want to study when they go on. Well,
I talked to one who was very appreciative and he enjoyed it.
The Communications Committee met Monday. They're finalizing the major newspaper, will be a good one again. Finalize some recommendations on award and trophy display, just organizing the cases and having things in appropriate places and displayed for appropriate amounts of time. And I think that's about all. We talked about website updates and Facebook updates, and our next meeting will consist of talking about the spring newspaper and a little pre-planning maybe for the 100th anniversary of this school in 1924. So that's all I have for communications. Move to the budget report.
Budget report, I have it for January. January is one of the 3 months where we have more revenue than expenses because the taxes start rolling in. The other ones are usually February and August. So we're doing all right. The fund balance jumped up to $4.9 million. We also had the $1.2 million cash from Fund 10 transferred to ADM, that's American Deposit Management, which then pays off our bonds and notes for the year for the building project, so it's $1.2 million there. We had a little bit of spec aid come in, and food service claims were $54,000 this month. Remember, everyone's getting free lunch this year, band breakfast as well. So that's good payments that came in this month.
Any questions on the budget? None. Did you want to give a field project? Facilities and building.
Yeah, capital building first. We had a lot of trades in here yesterday. We're still working with the sensors and the thermostats throughout the building to get the 1965 part to communicate with the new addition. It's a work in progress. Your room might be hot, it might be cold. It's really a balancing act, and they've been here 3 days this week to work on that. We also had a sewage problem underneath Mr. Judas' room where the tunnel is. There's a pit, and they don't know where the water is coming into and from. It shouldn't be coming from any place according to the drawings we have. The 1965 drawings are the poorest ones we had. The 1924 and 46 sections, those drawings were better than the 1965 part. So they don't want to cap it off until they find out where it's coming from, and it's not coming. The gentleman who was down the pits on yesterday thinks it's coming in the outlet one rather than the inlet one. So they got to research that. Garage doors. This garage door here on the end still has 3 panels that are on. You can see how they're white compared to brown. And the library door and out to the atrium is reversed because it like locks you in, not out. So it's got to lock people out. So it's got to get flipped around. And they're still working on that greenhouse problem because the roof, the material of the roof, the state now says it'll only be 60% of the material it's currently. We can flip it to metal or glass, the other 40%, because if someone was stuck in there in a fire, the plastic would melt and fall down on people. So there's some changes coming there. So that's the building.
I hope they're not going to seriously considering metal in the greenhouse.
They seriously are.
They seriously are.
They seriously are on the roof. Yeah, they're arguing with the state right now, but it looks like the state's going to win.
I mean,
I know.
I never heard.
I know it goes back and forth.
Completely absurd to have a greenhouse with a metal roof.
You should go visit the inspector out there. That'd be awesome. Go to Madison and go meet with them.
Well,
You have a lot of experience in it.
Next time I have an OAC meeting, which is 2 weeks from, it'll be not Monday, but the following Monday.
We need to have
the 21st, 11 o'clock. Why don't you come on in for the meeting?
Yeah, I mean, we need to have a greenhouse builder, designer, engineer come in and tell us.
That's United Greenhouse is our contractor for the greenhouse, and they've been in contact with the state.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you come on at 11 o'clock on the 21st, and yeah, it's a real doozy.
21st?
21st, 11 o'clock.
Who's saying, it's the state that's
The
saying?
state. Because first off, we had the screen for the shading for the light, and our local said it had to be non-flammable material. The greenhouse company said we've always put these in, we've never had non-flammable, and our local inspector said because it's a school, you have to have non-flammable shading. So it went back to the state, and then the state said, well, wait a minute, you're connected to a school, you've got to have a different rooftop on there. So it's been 4 months of this arguing.
Local inspectors cause problems. I mean, interpret things a lot differently. We see state to state, so this is common, we probably win this.
The plans had gone to the state once and were fine, and the second time they went over and talked about the shading, then they re-looked at the roof again. And said, well, wait a minute here. It's because it's directly connected to the ag classroom, so, yeah, it's a...
So they need a fire break? Would they need a fire break then to make that?
Probably, I don't know. That's a good question for the...
Because your question is, before we put metal roof in it, is there another action that could be invested in to being close.
That's a greenhouse. I mean,
That's what Bray and Myron in United Greenhouse keep saying, it's a greenhouse. And
that's a level roof.
yeah, well, it'd be 40%, right?
I have a quick, when those wires are terminated that we saw last meeting,
Yeah, they were in,
dumb question, is the air handler in the high school gym have anything to do with all the airflow in the building? And I'm just curious on that relationship, because airflow is airflow, and if, right?
It may, I don't know for sure. That airflow from the handler hasn't worked for 2 years now, and I don't know if it would or not. I know that the doors to this building, when you push them open, they suck air out. They shouldn't have that pressure.
Or so pressurized.
It should be neutral pressure. I think they call it neutral pressure.
It should be neutral.
Right. And it's not at this point. So I don't know if it's the heating or if that's part of it too, but they should have that figured out.
You had just made another comment with the air handler, and I just wanted to make sure they're looking at that too, because
Yeah, they should look
it's
at it all.
related, Thank you.
The subcontractor has a different person on our case now. And that's not been popular. Well, it's popular with Bray and Myron. It's not so popular in our process because there's a lot of overrides in the system. And when you override the system, you're not fixing the system, you're just bypassing it. Right? So
is the new person fixing the overrides? Because we're leaving overrides in our system, that sucks.
Right, no, they're changing it back, right, yeah. And the other thing the gas in the science labs, those were not installed correctly. So we had some, the gas was on a timer, but it was leaking out until the timer went off. So we did not use the gas for, I don't know, 10 days maybe, while they came back and fixed it. And the subcontractor sent a higher up and he said, absolutely, this is shoddy work. So that was good. So they fixed it for nothing, but nothing happened in the meantime, but it wasn't. So it was a bad situation, but it's a good one now. So when you think the building project's done, it's not. So. Field project update. Yeah, the plans we had, that's pretty much where we're at. And when we move on the 21st, Bray should have the drawings done by the end of the month and get it to Myron to be able to formalize going out to bid. I have requested from Myron and Bray that the bids, rather than going to the Myron office like they did for the building project, they come here. I've had a couple of local vendors, subcontractors that are interested in putting in bids, and they feel better if the bid process comes to the school rather than going to Myron's office, and we're comfortable with that. Bray has requested if Myron's going to bid on a sub-part of the project, that they hand their bids in an hour or two ahead of time before the deadline. Lisa and I went to bid day last time, and they come flying in at the end, email, fax, packages. I'm not
It's totally fun.
Yeah, it was not fun.
I thought it was so
No,
fun.
I thought it was scary because the budget sat there and it'd jump up by $500,000 and then it'd go under $200,000 and it kept bouncing back and forth. That was not fun.
In retrospect.
In retrospect, it turned out good. It was a good ride for us, but it was kind of like, I was glad when the roller coaster stopped, but they want, the other people wanted to be more transparent and have the bids come here, so that's what I told Brady we wanted in Myron.
Was there able to have a discussion about our current long lead because of the COVID caused logistics thing? Is there any mitigation steps that maybe they would consider or recommend? I mean, like if things take a long time, let's get that stuff ordered right away.
Yeah, Myron won't do that because of the bid process, but for like a steel roof on it compared to a regular shingle, that would be like an alternate bid option, and then we can weigh that out at that point.
Well, there's two issues. One is the different cost, but one is,
lead time on.
You could order stuff now.
Right,
But if they have to do the selection, I understand that.
Yeah, it was just like Mark Baker from Hilliard saying, we got the machines, we just don't have the lithium batteries that go in it, so we can't deliver them to you. And it's different products that aren't available or raw materials. So.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else or questions on that, we'll move on to the legislative report.
Right, number of things to add to my written report. I just want to remind everyone to participate, if at all possible, in the WASB survey of membership. You should have received a couple of emails about that. It really is a very simple process to do online, doesn't take very long. And WASB is surveying all district administrators, all school board members in the state, as well as CISA administrators. So watch your email for that. Also, the new board member meeting for school board members for our region will be on Tuesday, April 19 at the CISA office. And we know that we will have at least one new board member. So that will be important. And of course, anyone else who would like to attend are certainly welcome to do so. And you will get to see the new exciting meeting facilities that CISA has, the virtual meeting facilities, and the great technology that is available if you care to join in that. Last night we had our CISA Board of Directors meeting, and we had a lengthy presentation on the Youth Apprenticeship Program, which our district participates in. In fact, 16% of our students are participating in the program. CISA now is taking over the Youth Apprenticeship Program along with the Greater Green Bay Chamber of Commerce. And the old Anapi Youth Apprentice Program, which was so successful in Luxembourg-Casco and now has spread to other districts. And not only are the plans for Youth Apprenticeship Program to increase the number of students who are placed in apprenticeships, and they have all kinds of businesses involved, wanting kids to be placed as youth apprentices. But also they're going to be doing extensive career planning services with all students, not just the youth apprentice students. So that is very exciting. This is another great resource, career education resource for all of our students. And they have lots of grant funding and lots of business participation. So it really is an excellent effort. I'm sure, Kyle, you've been hearing about it at some of the PAC meetings. And also we had a presentation on strategic planning last night at CISA. As CISA's, we went through the same strategic planning process that we went through here in our district. But Aaron Malcheski last night gave us an update on where the planning process is for CISA now. And he had a color-coded target sheet template for tracking the action steps, which really helped us as board members to see all of the different action steps and where they are. Are they completed? Are they in progress? Have they been started yet? And I'm thinking, because we've not heard much lately about our strategic planning process, that we could get that template from Aaron and be able to use that for our strategic planning process to put new life back into that. I know with COVID, that kind of got set aside. But there is a way to be able to track that, and it's very visual and it's color-coded, and I think that would be very helpful. Then today we had a Fair Aid Coalition annual meeting, and all the board members participated from the Fair Aid Coalition, and we have a plan for the year. Our whole effort is to go back to state statutes 120.10, which requires the state to be providing more funding for all school districts. In fact, it says it is the purpose of the state aid formula set forth in this subchapter to cause the state to assume a greater proportion of the costs of public education and to relieve the general property of some of its tax burden. And Dick Kendall has been following this too. And this is what the Fair Aid Coalition does, to make sure that we are getting our fair share of the state money, and we are not right now, and there are a lot of other districts that aren't also. So we will be working with the legislative candidates this year, those who are running for office, to make sure they understand where we're coming from, We'll be partnering with WASB, with WASDA, and any other group in Wisconsin that is supportive of fair funding for our schools. We will be doing additional research, working with the Policy Research Forum and others to develop our package prior to the next budget year, increasing our coalition membership, and doing an update of our Fair Aid Coalition website. And we did have elections today, and I have been elected to another two-year term, so I will continue to monitor this for our district. And I believe that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
Questions?
We'll move to old business. I don't have anything for school board goals. We will have some work on that after the meeting tonight, though. Tomorrow I'm going to call and get everybody sent the link for school board self-evaluation, and I'll ask that you complete that by March 1st. And I'll send you a reminder. That'll come from school perception. We've done all past years, so if you get them by March 1st, and they compile it all. No, haven't gotten it yet. So that will be coming to you from school perceptions. 2021-2022 school operations.
We switched optional masking on Monday. As of yesterday, we had 0 known cases of COVID. We have some students out with tests pending, and we have some families refused testing. So I know I didn't check it today. Did you guys check it today and track it? No, I just was happy it was 0 yesterday. So it was 0 for staff and students yesterday. Yeah, so that's good. But there may be some we don't know about yet. There's always some out there testing.
Right.
Anything else on that? No? Good. So that keeps that before we can take it off the agenda.
We can only hope.
Then we have in the new business, we have a proposal for an overnight extended student trip for the band and choir. We have a lot of information on that from the music department. So, did you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I read through it. I think it's a great trip. I think it's about time we get back going on these things. Of course, if something happens with me now, and is it March of 23? Yeah. Let's adjust if we have to, but I think we plan to go.
What's the last time?
I think we got a plan to go. I don't know why not.
23, we just got.
Yeah, it's 23.
Does anybody have questions about the information that we received?
Just a comment, maybe more than a question, but I just always want to be sure that no student will be prevented from going because of finances.
Right. Mrs. Hausnager, they do fundraising, and she'll work that out.
Okay.
Yeah, she's always has some donations come in, and she'll work it out.
Okay.
The only thing we couldn't do, no, Sue, is if someone says they're not interested, and the reason's financing, they don't share that, that's the only time that would happen when you don't know.
Yeah.
Because we have some band and choir kids that don't go, just because they don't go, because they don't want to go. And we won't know the difference between someone who doesn't want to go and someone who thinks, gee, I can't afford that, unless they spoke up. So sometimes it's
Hopefully
unavoidable.
staff would be able.
But if we had someone who's a hardship case, we'd get them on the
And
bus.
hopefully staff would be able to ferret that out so that.
I think Tanya knows their students pretty well, but there's always high schoolers that have pride that are just not going to speak up and say no.
Parents in this school district are really, they're really proud, and they do not want,
It depends who they are, right?
depends on who they are, but some do, they don't want any perception of any kind of charity coming
Right.
toward them.
But if we know there's a hardship case, we'll take care of it. The ones that'll slide through will be the ones we don't know about.
I don't make this topic, but does the state of New York require vaccination to travel into the state of New York?
I don't know what their current status is, and I don't know what they'll be in 23.
Right, I mean, is it, that's going to limit some people from going. I'm just saying,
Right, right.
why New York? I mean, you know, I don't know.
Well, it's Broadway and it's all over.
I get it.
And I don't know, and I don't know what
These are great
March,
trips. I don't
and I don't know what March 23 will be, and I don't know what the other options would be a couple years ago.
A year from now, that's, I agree with you.
A couple years ago, they went to New Orleans, I don't know what the
I think they need
requirements
to be
are
prepared
there.
though, so when they get out there, they know what they're actually getting into.
Right.
But I support it, that's a year, 23 is a long time away in COVID days, you know?
Well, I would hope that this tour company, I mean, I'm sure Mrs. Osneger would be on top of it, and the tour company would be on top of that. So then if there are no questions, we'll need a motion one way or the other on that, for approval or denial.
Move to approve the proposal for the overnight extended student trip to Sevastopol Band and Choir, presented in the
Second.
agenda.
Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Then we have a resignation of our K-12 music teacher, Acacia Angelo Limber.
I don't know how to say her name. Liebert. Yeah. She got married at Christmas time. The gentleman lives in Tennessee, so she's going to go live with her husband, which most people do. Yeah. Can't be love, I guess.
Move to approve the resignation of Acacia Liber, K-12 music teacher.
Second.
Questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried.
I could just say a couple quick words. She's been extremely energetic. She's been a great addition to our music department. But even one of the more impressive things is the character that she has. You know, she knows that she's not going to be here through the end of the year, and she took it upon herself to put together kind of a musical play for the young kids. It's going to be a lot of work to put that together, and she could just easily have said, you know, I don't need to do that. So kudos to her.
That's about grades 3 through 5?
Yeah.
I don't know if we voted on that. All in favor, say aye. We did. And then the announcement of the intent to retire for Deb Dantoy, the middle school teacher, in the 23-24 school year.
It's 2 years out. It's 2 years after this school year ends, so yeah.
Is there a motion?
Move to approve the intent to retire in 2023-2024, Deborah Dantoin, middle school teacher.
Second.
Questions or discussion?
It's hard to see the
Come on now.
mainstays leave us.
I'm sure if Mr.
Yeah.
Bear were here, you'd have
The
something.
numbers in this room are growing, by the way.
I'm sure if Mr. Bear were here today, he'd have something good to say about you, so we'll ask him to say it next month.
I just have a question, Deb. How many years will it be?
Well, it's 32 this year.
That's amazing.
34.
That's amazing.
And I'm only 36 years old, so.
All
That
in
is
favor, say
amazing.
aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Congratulations, Deb. The 22-23 school calendar.
In each box by month, you'll see an S and a T. It's how many student attendance days, teacher attendance days. There's 4 built-in snow days. I had this at the meeting and then sent it out to the staff. I got some feedback. Some people like spring break, some don't. We do have the class field trips that go on a year. It's probably 40% like spring break, 40% don't, 20% could go either way. Some people want to get done earlier. I recommend we go with this one and then with the 4 snow days, if we don't use them, back them off at the end of the year, like we'll do in April for this year. So far this school year, we've used 1 snow day, cold day, and then 2 late starts. One was because of electricity. And we should look at that wisely in April because I don't want to come back just for a Monday or one day, you know, especially with high school finals and stuff. So, but that'll be an April decision. And I guess I'll go for a drive in the morning too because they say it's going to snow overnight and get some ice coming. So,
Tonight?
tonight, 6 to 6. Is the weather morning.
Questions or?
What? Okay, all right. He says we're all right. There you go.
He wants to get out.
Questions or discussion on the proposed calendar?
Is it still Do they still do it by hours?
Yes, it's 1,137 hours for grade 7 through 12. Kindergarten through 6th grade is 1,050 hours.
We translate that.
Yeah, you get to count, you cannot count your first passing period of the day, but you can count all the other passing periods as instructional time. You can't count lunch. Why the first, I don't know why the other 7 passing periods count, I don't know. It's a state formula.
Any other questions or discussion on this calendar? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the calendar as presented? Approve the calendar as presented, please.
Move to approve the calendar as presented.
Second.
No questions or discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. That concludes the regular business for this evening. I will look for a motion to move into executive session.
I make motions that convene the executive session.
Second.
Roll call vote, Sue.
Aye.
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 Motion carried at 9:09 p.m. We're back in open session at 10:52 p.m. We will look for a motion on the compensation for support staff and certified staff.
I would move to approve a 3.2% increase in salaries for both support staff and certified staff.
Second.
Questions or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. So our next meeting is March 17th. I don't think we have anything in between, so then I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Make motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Adjourn at 10:53 p.m.